Hey there, this video is going to serve as a tutorial to activity 1.2.2 3D solid modeling in the Introduction to Engineering Design curriculum for Project Lead the Way. In this particular video series, we're going to utilize Onshape to do some 3D modeling for our course. And with that, we're going to be starting off with creating a new folder and as well as creating a document in Onshape. If you have not had a chance to view the video on Onshape interface, please make sure you take a look at that. We do discuss some of the features that are there and just kind of getting familiar with some of the interface within Onshape. Some of that will be discussed as we go through this video as well. So to get started, we're going to go ahead and go up here to Create, and we're going to create a folder to organize all of our files for this activity. So I usually get in the habit of naming it by the activity name. So this is activity 1.2.2, 3D solid modeling. We'll click Create. The folder will show up down here in your dashboard. Clicking on the name, we're able to be inside the folder, and we'll click on Create. And then we're going to select Document. So from that Create menu. Here, I'm going to name this. We're going to start off by modeling our cube construction block. So typing the name cube in there and then clicking Create, and this will load us into our workspace and the Part Studio to kind of work with. A few things to kind of take note of is we have our browser. So our browser is here on the left side, and we see that we have our three principal work planes to work off of, as well as our view cube up here in the upper right hand corner. So whenever you're utilizing Onshape, there's going to be some different navigational features that are going to be helpful to discuss. I'm going to wait till we get some of the 3D modeling aspects out of the way, and then we'll talk a little bit about that. The biggest thing we want to do is anytime we get ready to start a document is we want to go up here to our menu, and we want to select the workspace units. So the workspace units right now, you can kind of see what kind of different units you have. The main thing is under length. We're going to make sure this is set to inch, and then you can also select what kind of level of precision that you want. I usually stick to about 3 decimal places. If you need to go higher, you can always adjust that here. Same thing with any others. So like here with mechanical or angle, I'm going to go ahead and collapse these actually, and then that way we can just see what those are. Alright, once we have our desired units, I'm going to click the green check mark, and that's going to get us started. So in order to get started with creating a 3D model, we're going to have to create a 2D sketch first. And that's usually the general workflow for every 3D solid model that you'll create. So up here you're going to have the sketch option, which is called Create New Sketch. And if I select it, you're going to see right now a menu is going to pop up, and right now Sketch 1 is showing up in red, and it's looking for this little blue highlight, which is called a sketch plane. And even if you leave your cursor kind of sit, it'll kind of tell you, like, you know, like here it says Sketch 1 did not regenerate properly, select a sketch plane. So I'm going to go ahead and select a sketch plane. In this case, I'm going to choose the front work plane, and I'm going to, you usually have to click on the outside edge. You'll see the highlight in orange or kind of a yellowish color whenever you see it, and I'm going to go ahead and select it. You'll notice it's going to put the sketch plane right in alignment with that front plane. So think of the sketch plane as a piece of paper. And so what we just did is we aligned it to that front work plane. Okay. Now we have that selected. You'll see the sketch plane is set to the front plane. It's now not showing up in red. It's now in black, which means it likes what we're doing. And we're going to go ahead and leave this open. And I'm going to actually hide these other work planes. Now when I'm over here, I can notice there's a little eyeball icon when I put my cursor by the names of these work planes. Either I can click the eyeballs, or if I right click on one of the work planes, I can select to hide all planes. So again, a right click will get you that menu that shows up whenever you're on the name of those particular items. So we'll hide all the work planes, and you'll notice that we still have the origin. So the origin is right here, and you'll notice that it's still there. We want to keep that on because that's our defined spot in the 3D workspace. 0, 0, 0 is our origin place, and we're going to be constraining to it as we kind of sketch. So there's some reasons for that. Now the only thing is we're kind of turned at an angle here, so I do want to turn it where it's like in a more 2D fashion. Either I could go over here and click on the front of the view cube, or you could also select the N key on the keyboard, N for normal, and that'll turn it normal, so that way we're looking right at it. Again, if you're kind of rotated around, you could also click on the front of the view cube, and that will also size the sketch plane. You'll see some of the sketch plane as I move. I'm actually zooming in and out utilizing the scroll wheel on my mouse. So if I zoom out, that will make it a little smaller. If I zoom in, we get a little closer. And it does go by where your cursor is on your screen. Okay. So first thing is we want to look for, up here at the top, our sketch items. So you'll notice we've got some different shapes like lines, rectangles, circles, arcs, polygons, and there's some of these different features up here. There's trim and offset. These are some of the modification tools. And then you have some of these things up here like coincident. You'll see this little icon pop up here in a moment once we start to draw, and I'll show you what that means. These are geometric constraints: tangent, horizontal, vertical. Some of these things we'll explore as we go throughout the different activities in the curriculum. So the first thing is I'm going to go up here to the rectangle tool, and if you click on any of the arrows, you'll see this has a little drop down arrow next to it. If I select it, I can see there's a corner rectangle, a center point rectangle, and an aligned rectangle. So I got more options than just one particular rectangle kind of drawing tool. If I leave my cursor sit on top of any of these particular items, they tell me, like for a center point rectangle, we sketch a rectangle starting with the center point and ending with a corner. So I like this option. I'm going to go ahead and select it, and I'm going to go down here and I want to select the origin as the center, and you'll notice, see that little icon that popped up? It looks just like the one I told you to kind of keep an eye on from before. That's the coincident constraint, meaning that we're going to lock onto that origin when I select it. And you can kind of see that when you hover over it, it actually turns like a yellow, like the origin, and it kind of turns like a yellow or kind of orangish color. So my little hot cursor highlight might be kind of making that look a little funny, but on your screen that's what you'll see. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select it, and I'm going to move my cursor away. So when I do a select or a click, I'm actually just clicking the button and releasing. I'm not holding down the button, just to let you know. So I went ahead and I clicked and released, and then I went ahead and move out. And then when I get it about the size I want it, I'm just going to click again. So again, just to press and release on your mouse button. And then that's going to put in the sketch. So I'm going to zoom in here. And the other thing that's also helpful is as you move around, if you press straight down on your scroll wheel, you'll hear a click on your mouse, and you can actually move your mouse cursor around and move and pan around on the screen like this. Okay, as well as zooming in and zooming out. Now the one thing you'll notice is that right now my cursor still has the little plus sign, and what it is it's still highlighted up here in your menu on center point rectangle. That means that if we go to click again, it's going to want to draw another rectangle. I don't want to draw any more rectangles, so I'm going to right click and I'm going to select Escape Center Rectangle. You can also select the Escape key on your keyboard, same kind of thing. So if I select it and if I press the Escape key on the keyboard, it'll also cancel out of the command. You'll notice your cursor goes back to a regular mouse pointer when you do that. So right now you'll see you have blue lines for the sketch, and what that is that if I click and drag on these lines, is I can kind of make this bigger or smaller. And really what we want to do is we want to set some dimensions in there to whatever the size of our cube is, so that way it doesn't move. So in order to do so, I've actually gone and kind of looked at this, where you can kind of take a look for the sketch dimension, which is right up here, the dimension tool. So if I select it, I can click on a line, and I can, when I click on it, again, click and then release, and then I'm going to go out here and I'm going to place. So I'm just going to click and release, and now it gives me an option to put in a number. Now I don't have to worry about hitting backspace or clicking inside there when it's highlighted in all blue. If I start typing, it'll override whatever that's in there. 1.125. Since it's already in inches, I can just hit the enter key. I don't have to worry about putting IN or anything. And now I can go ahead and do the next side. I'll click on the top line. Same scenario, 1.125, select enter, and notice how the lines now turn black. So that's because we know the exact sizes of those lines, and it's locked it in. It's fully constrained, is what we say. And so that means we're good to go. So now that we got a fully constrained sketch, I'm actually going to stop sketching. I'm going to finish the sketch by clicking the green check mark on sketch 1. And now you can see there's sketch 1, of course, in your browser. So any kind of changes we make, the browser's going to keep track of it. And in order to do the next part, I kind of wanted this to be turned into a 3D orientation. So if I right click anywhere on the screen I can choose the isometric option, and that'll put it into an isometric orientation. So you've done a little bit of isometric sketching up to this point, and that's kind of what that's doing, is that's allowing us to see it a little bit more in a 3D kind of orientation. I'm going to go up here to extrude, and I'll select that option. On the extrude, notice how it's red right now. We're going to be extruding a solid. It's going to be a new solid, and it says faces and sketch regions to extrude, and it says select a face or sketch region. So I'm going to go up here, select my sketch, and it's going to start to generate the solid. You're going to see some options. Right now we have blind, and they have some different options there. For right now, we're going to do a blind, and you can also change what direction you want it to go in. I usually like it to go back, so then that way that, you know, I don't have to zoom out and everything as much. So, and then the depth, if I just click inside there, notice again the blue highlight. I'm just going to go ahead and start typing 1.125. If I click, you'll see that it'll adjust. So if I just click inside of this menu, it'll adjust there. And what I can do here is I can even change things like symmetric if I wanted to. So notice how it puts the sketch plane right in the middle, and I can uncheck it, and you can also change some of the direction and everything here. For this basic kind of tutorial, we're just going to go ahead and select OK, or we'll select the green check mark, and that's going to put our solid right there, our cube icon, or our cube model, I should say. Notice that the origin is still there. If I want to turn that off or hide it, I can always go over here to the browser and select the eyeball, so that way we don't have that origin showing up. So we want it on there for the sketch plane, but once we get the 3D model, usually we want to turn that off. Notice down here in the parts, we have part 1. I'm going to go ahead and right click on this. So, or if I select it, actually if I do a left click and select it, you'll notice it selected the whole thing. So that's the entire part. If I right click on it, I can go ahead and select rename. I'm going to go ahead and rename this part cube and then hit enter. And then if I right click on the cube, I can also do some things like assign a material. So if I assign a material here, if I hit the drop down, I can choose what kind of material. Let's go by a wood material, and I'm going to pull this menu up here just a little bit. So if I hit the drop down, I can also search wood, and we can choose what kind of wood that we're going to go with. For this one, let's just say, let's go with like maybe a maybe poplar. So just for an example, and they'll show you what the density is. So the density is 0.016 pounds per cubic inch. That can be helpful for later. So let me go ahead and just select the green check mark to assign poplar as the material. Doesn't really change the look of it too much. If I right click on the cube again and say properties, it will also show you some of the different properties for this particular part, and even be able to do some of the calculation and things like that. So description and things of that nature. So just to let you know what that is, and as we use it later in the course. Let's go ahead and right click on the cube, select edit appearance. This is where I can choose a new color. I'm actually going to choose this blue color. If you want to play around with picking a new color, you can also kind of see as well of how transparent that you want it to be. So usually I like it to keep it fully kind of opaque, so it's not very transparent, but it depends on what you're making. And then if you click on the mixer, you can also kind of change a little bit by clicking inside of here and dragging, as well as changing your different color hues as well to be able to see what kind of color that you'd like to be. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of get this into a nice Batesville blue for our school colors, and then I'm going to go ahead and select the green check mark, and that's going to change the color of our cube. Alright, so here now you can see an extrude 1, sketch 1, and that's going to finish out our cube 3D model. And what I'm going to end up doing is either one of two things. I can click up here and select close document, or I can just click on the Onshape icon. This will take us back to our dashboard. Here's the folder we're in. Here's our cube document there. If I kind of refresh my page, you'll see a preview of what it looks like right there. So as you kind of do that. This finishes up the first tutorial in Onshape. A lot of information covered, especially navigation wise, but also being able to look at some different items. So just wanted to kind of show you how to create your first 3D model in Onshape. And with that, if you take a look at the next video, we'll explore the next construction block until we get all 9 of them all modeled right here in Onshape.